Live. We do have a full house today.
We do. And just to check you're on my screen. We
Live. We do have a full house today.
So I can understand from that the YouTube's working.
Yes, indeed.
Has our commenter, our potential commenter joined us yet? Or
No.
Okay. Well, there's time. So we'll call the meeting to order. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this Environmental Advisory Committee meeting, Tuesday, May 6th. My name is Kate McNaughton. I'm chair of the committee and counselor for Picton Ward and all of Prince Edward County, like all of my council colleagues. We represent the whole county. We're going to get started, but before we do today, we've got to look. I'm going to look to the committee to see if they're comfortable amending the agenda before we confirm it. We have a couple of we've got a couple of requests to deal with. One by me, which is would people like to talk about the Ontario Bill 5 and whether we should provide comment to the government before the comment period closes. So we'll have to vote on that. And then secondly, our planners, and Scott is in a meeting, but I'm sure his feelings won't be hurt no matter what happens, but our planners would like to just ask us a few questions and work with us on the proposed sustainability guidelines that they're currently investigating and planning to incorporate into some of our policies, which I think is wonderful. So that we will vote to include separately. Also, if anyone does have particular things that you're looking for, you can always email any of our staff or email our planners. And if you don't have the correct email address, you can contact them through me or through Ben or John. We're always happy to be the go-betweens. Well, not always. Sometimes happy to be the go-betweens. Depends on what the content is. But happy to connect. If you do have brilliant, ideas, a light bulb goes off regarding the conversation we might have, we can always make those connections. So first, and our clerk will stop me if I do anything wrong, or he'll help me along just so we get it right. First, I would like to look for a mover and a seconder to include a discussion on Bill 5 on our agenda.
Madam Chair, we'll hold up for a minute. Let's
Sure.
clear any pecuniary interest.
Oh my goodness. I thought, no, we do confirmation of the agenda first.
It's been changed.
Oh,
yes, it goes back to the procedural bylaw. We can refer to this offline, but
no, that's totally fine. Okay, so does anyone have any pecuniary interests? I don't see any hands going up. Okay, so all good. We'll move along. Thank you, Ben.
Sure.
That is good to know, and we'll note that for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So back to Bill 5. Let's determine the committee's interest in having this discussion. I would need a mover and a seconder to look to even include it on the agenda. So thank you, Mary.
Well, sorry, Madam Chair, let's start where you started a moment ago. Let's get the agenda on the floor, and then we'll amend if need be.
We can do that. All good. Thank you very much. Like I said, we've got, blessedly, our clerk will keep me in line. So Mary, can I ask you to put it on the floor? And John, I saw you. Oh, Jane, you're in, seconder. So moved by Mary, seconded by Jane, that the agenda for the EAC committee meeting of May 6th be confirmed. So it's on the floor. Mm-hmm. Now we'll look to offer amendments. Thank you, Ben. So Mary, you had your hand up, and John had his hand up prior, I believe. So John, would you like to second? John has disappeared from my view, but I think there was a hand up there. Did anyone catch that?
Works for me, Madam Chair.
Works for me too. I think it worked for John. So moved by Mary, seconded by John. And is everyone clear on what the amendment is that's being proposed? Thank you. All in favor? That's enough hands to move that on. And if we could add that, where would you like to add that? I think potentially in
Madam Chair,
respect to staff time. Oh,
I would suggest if we were going to allow the planning staff to talk about sustainability guidelines, I might put that third on the agenda. We do have staff lined up to talk about a couple of things. So maybe after 7.2, and then maybe talk about Bill 5 following 7.4.
so then it will go headwater and wetland mapping, environmental impact statement, and then Bill 5. And then
I would do
potentially the planners.
with your permission, I would potentially put the planners third, and then the staff can be relieved if they're done, and then the committee can carry on with the discussion of Bill 5.
Actually, I would suggest we go after after 7.3, because Molly might have to leave early, and she might prefer. Oh, never mind. She does not.
I'm just gonna say,
hi, Molly.
I don't have to go out anymore. So
okay,
no
so
rush.
Then it doesn't
You're
matter.
all good. Yeah.
So we can do it as you laid out, Ben. So let us then move along with welcoming Scott and seeing if we can get a mover and a seconder to put that amendment on the floor. Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Paulina. So everyone is clear that Scott is joining us for consultative purposes. I think he just wants to ask a few questions. And does anyone need further clarification? Good. All in favor? I think, can you put your hand back up if you're in favor? Because I kind of missed it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That carries. Okay, Scott, you're in. So you'll be item 7. The newly renumbered 7.3, and everything else will bump down the line a little bit. So that takes. Oh, and then we need to approve that as amended. So improving confirmation of the agenda as amended. All in favor? And that carries. Moving right along. Did people have a chance to review the minutes of the previous meeting? And can I get a mover and a seconder to put the minutes on the floor? Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Paulina. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Great, that carries. Announcements. Does anyone have any announcements that they would like to bring forward, or any news that they would like to share? Oh, Kathy, go for it.
Just a quick note, we got approval from Albert and the operations team to install our Westlake wetland awareness signs, and the posts are in the ground on County Road 12, and the signs are going up next Wednesday. So our little community association is quite proud of that.
Oh, congratulations. That's
just
so
small
nice.
Just small steps to help protect and bring awareness to the wetland area. Thank you.
So would anyone else like to make a comment or an announcement? I will briefly make a couple. One is we've got, speaking of signs, the county has now has had an open competition to create a naturalized garden sign so that people can be aware of gardens that are, taking away the lawn and investing in good habitat species or native species that helps us with a number of things by potentially habitat creation, by supporting native species, and also, and perhaps offering some food and forage to local insects, pollinators, in general, birds. And unfortunately in my garden, probably an awful lot of rodents, but they're cute and my cats think they're tasty. Which is maybe not the most environmentally sensitive aspect. It is a beautiful drawing by a local student, and I believe it was reported on in local news, and everyone should have a look if you've not seen. It is adorable. If you are giving your garden a species overhaul and investing in some really great productive native species in your garden and want to consider having one of these signs, I think you're going to love it. So have a look. The other bit of news I'd like to share.
I have a question, Kate.
Yeah.
Where can we find these signs? I'm definitely interested.
I'm not sure yet, but I think you just call Shire Hall and they'll probably line one up for you.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah. Was that you, Kathy?
Yeah,
Sure.
I'd like to get some too.
Yeah.
'Cause we're having a Butterfly Way garden project, community garden project, where we're trying to have native plants and pollinating plants in 12 of our neighbors' gardens.
That's perfect.
As part of that project.
That's perfect. There's one in my neighborhood that was absolutely crawling with bumblebees the other day. As I walked by, there was like a cloud around this one small patch that had been naturalized, and it looked like a literal cloud. So good luck to you. That's beautiful.
Great.
You can you know what, if there's, I think it's just call Shire Hall and they'll have one for you. But if there's anything you need to know further, we'll make sure that it's posted on the Sustainability Hub, which it might already be, or we'll put you in contact with the right people. So additionally, I would like to just talk about, I don't know if anyone went to the tree giveaway on Saturday. Jane Leslie did. Jane Leslie and I were both volunteering at the same site. We gave away literally thousands of tree seedlings, and it was a really exciting, really fun, really positive municipal event. And we had tons of people show up at the Bicton site, and there were 3 sites. And even on a rainy day, we had lots of people come out to pick up native tree species and a couple of Carolinian species. So it was really lovely. And our staff were knocked it out of the park with their increased numbers of trees. Nobody went away empty-handed, and literally thousands of trees found a home in Prince Edward County. Very positive. So just thought I would share that good news.
Albert made the comment at one point that the Quinte Conservation has done some research and said our tree cover in the county has improved by 4%.
Kidding.
So we're going the right way. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's news.
Yep.
When this committee came into existence 5 years ago, increasing our canopy seemed like a challenge that might be more like a struggle with several hurdles to jump rather than a success story. And I think with the efforts of our wonderful staff and the efforts of this committee and our natural cover group, seeing an increase in percentages, even with the ash forest being decimated, we've actually got a success story. Wow.
And hey, I'm going to put in a plug. The County Foundation matched the municipality which is why we were able to increase, I think, the number of trees this year.
Well, then, thanks are due to the County Foundation board members and staff as well. That's amazing. That is great. When we all work together, we can do great things. Okay, anyone else have any announcements? Yep, Mary?
I'm not sure if this is the right place to announce it, but in Rotary Park last fall, we planted a new native garden. And today it was run over by a private tree clearing service. So
Oh, God.
I'm not sure what the remedy
gosh.
is, but it's quite
Well-
sad for us.
Well, it's
locally.
being looked at by county
Okay.
staff already.
Great.
Councillor St. Jean and I were notified on an email thread. And certainly that is under investigation right now.
Okay.
And there were a couple of coinciding complaints, one that about the garden itself, but also the restricted access that was not permitted. So for the actual trucks that came in. So that is under,
It seems complex, but thank you.
it is very complicated, and it is under review right now by our staff. So, but thank you, and thank you to several of the neighbors who were able to connect with us and with staff to ensure that we do what we can. So thank you. And any further announcements, or shall we move on? Okay, moving right along. Comments from the audience. We have,
Madam Chair, we do have Penny with us.
we do. Penny Morris has joined us in the meeting. And our newly amended agenda, including Bill 5, I believe, is the topic that she would like to discuss. Penny, would you like to make a comment at this time?
I will. This comment is not very organized. I didn't prepare very much in advance, so I'll just kind of blunder through. But I was appalled to learn about Bill 5 just a couple of days ago. So I put out, I checked out the EcoJustice website is an excellent page for information, and I jot down notes, and I subsequently sent out, a call to action to as many, just folks that I knew would be interested, including Kate and your committee. I sent an email to our MPP, Tyler Alsop. I have received a reply from his office staff. However, it was quite disappointing. I have not yet replied to his reply. Basically, he was asking me what words or what part of the bill was I concerned with, like the wording can be changed, and that he was basically insinuating that this Bill 5 does protect the environment and species. It's horrendous. And as you probably, if you haven't read it in full, I think it needs to be, I'm going to ask here that it be a priority of this committee to do what you can as a committee of the municipality, because in effect, if Bill 5 goes through, and it's already passed second reading, it's been sent to committee. I was attending this afternoon a meeting of the Reform Gravel Mining Coalition, and basically what was discussed there was that if Bill 5 goes through, even the MZO for Picton terminals, it would be null and void, because all the province would just include it in a special economic zone. And that would mean that there would be no provincial or municipal laws that would have to be enforced. It's basically, if Bill 5 goes through, there's no meaningful rules for any species protection across this province. It's very Trumpism. And so that's basically my comment. And I thank you for whatever you can put forward.
Thank you very much, Penny. Do any committee members have any questions or comment for Penny? So I would like to, thank you, Penny, you're one of a few people who brought this to my attention. I was aware of it, but didn't have a chance to look before Ben and I set the agenda. And the timing is something that was pointed out, I think, by John, that it was brought forward pretty much the day before Election Day. And that was potentially problematic from a public outreach perspective, and it makes it very silent. It really gets buried in the news stories. So maybe we need, maybe not enough people caught on to it quickly enough. With our options going
Like
forward.
3 weeks for comment. I mean, what are comments due by the 17th?
Comment is due by May 17th, yeah.
So
Well,
that seems very unusual in terms of tight timelines.
That's just for the changes for the Endangered Species Act.
Yeah.
Fortunately, in our council cycle, our next meeting's on the 13th, so we can be, if we're going to offer a recommendation to council, which I think is potentially where we could go, we would be in under the wire as long as these minutes are completed in time. So,
Madam Chair, I might suggest redirecting this discussion when we get to the agenda.
right,
Um,
right. Of course.
Right. I guess the only other comment, if I may, is that
Yes.
there are online signups put forward by Eco Justice and Environmental Defense. So,
And you've all had the EcoJustice link, but not the Environmental Defense link. And I think everyone received the actual Ontario newsroom link to all of the changes. And there are several that would be of concern to this municipality. So thank you very much, Penny. Thank you. And I did hear back in response to Penny's email, I heard back from Tyler's office that, because we were all CC'd on the same email thread, that Adam Bamberger might forward the video of our conversation to his boss. So I'll send him the link after the fact. So again, thank you, Penny. Seeing no more questions or comments, can I get someone to receive the comment from the audience and somebody to second it, please? Thank you, Jane, and thank you, Kathy. So Ben, is it sufficient to receive the comments from the audience?
Some comment from the audience. That's fine. Thank
Okay.
you.
All in favor? That carries. And again, thank you. It's wonderful to have public participation. It's unfortunate that it's such a topic, but it's so great to have a member of the public show up and share their thoughts with us. So items for consideration, we're going to get right into that. The first on our list, 7.1, is headwater and wetland mapping. Who's here? Is that Grant? Is Grant joining us today?
Yes, I think he's here somewhere.
And we can put it on the floor if I can get a mover and a seconder. Hi, Grant.
Hi there.
Grant's in the house. Jane, and seconded by Kathy. So items on the floor. And welcome to you, Grant. Grant, is this the first time you visited us at the Environmental Advisory Committee?
I believe so, yeah.
I
Thanks for
believe
having
so
me.
too. Well, welcome. And this is something that we've talked about several times over the past several years. It's nice to have you here. And this is, I think, an opportunity for the committee and our GIS specialist. Grant runs the GIS department at the municipality, for anyone who doesn't know. And I'll just hand it over to you, Grant, and say, take it away.
Yeah. Hi there. Yeah, I'm the GIS supervisor here at the county. We take care of all things mapping. So yeah, happy to be here. I'm wondering, did you have any questions for me?
Well,
Or,
I would presume, is that what we're doing? It's more like an opportunity to have a Q&A between the committee
Yeah.
and our staff.
Correct, Madam Chair. This was in response to, it was originally Angus's suggestion, I think, to invite
Right.
Grant to have this discussion. So it was, Grant has been invited to provide
Terrific.
context and discuss sort of what the GIS department can do for this project. And I might suggest the committee ask him some questions about, you know, limitations or parameters or what it is the committee would like.
Great. Well, to start with, I think what we've heard is it's actually not a massive job, that there is good data potentially available that could be applied to headwater and wetland mapping. And maybe we could start out with, is that the case? I think it's been reported that it could be, you know, less work than we might imagine. I would have imagined weeks, but
Angus had a question?
Yes, I would split the two up, address first headwater and then wetland.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Grant.
I just, yeah, I can speak to that. I think to give you a really educated answer, though, I'd have to really understand what the final need for this product is, because depending on how it'll be used will really depend on what type of analysis we'll do. So, for example, I have done, and my team, we have done headwater mapping before for other projects for specific areas. We were fortunate to have a hydrologist with us, and it really highlighted the need to have somebody with that expertise to understand how water flows across certain landscapes and different geologic features and soil types. So in terms of the technical capabilities of our team, yeah, we know how to create these water models, how they run through different soil types and stuff like that's we don't know where the model will break down. So we would definitely, if we had the direction to do this and we had the staffing, the time to do it, we would definitely need that kind of help. So in the past, like I said, we've done this. There are some issues with the data that we have, like the DEM information. It's wonderful data. Quickly realized, though, that things like culverts weren't burned into the DEM, so the water would run up to a road, and because a culvert isn't burned into that, it would hit that road and run down different directions. So there definitely would, depending on that, and that was my question about, or why I mentioned we need to know the final use of this, and if decisions, what type of decisions will be made off of it, because I would suggest that not only we would need the help of a hydrologist or a hydrogeologist, I'm not sure what the technical term is for that position or expertise, but we might also would want to consider a more complex product such as like ArcHydro. We do use Esri products here, so you would want to use a more detailed piece of software. It's more tailored to doing that. So long story short is, yes, we've done some in the past, and it was more of a screening tool kind of thing. But if we were looking to make, like, regulatory decisions or precise like planning decisions, then it would actually be a bigger undertaking. So it all really depends. There's a lot of data there. Some of the expertise, technical stuff we do have in-house, but if we want to get into more technical, this could open up to be a bigger project than maybe initially thought. And then to talk about the wetlands, I definitely don't have the expertise to do that in-house to recognize wetlands. We would have to have somebody, maybe Credit Conservation, and the MNR, they do have wetland layers that they're identifying. So it really depends on again what we're looking for. Is this like wetlands that always have water in them, or are they kind of think I can't remember the term, but like more of a seasonal wetland. So I just threw a lot out there at you. I'm sorry, I kind of rambled on, but those were my thoughts coming into this. And I'll open it up to anyone else.
Angus, did you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, with respect to the wetlands, this actually came out of a comment by one of the attendees at the first climate consultation. And the suggestion was that the county could put together a map of wetlands, and that would include both the permanent and the ephemeral wetlands. I've subsequently found that I believe it's GeoHub, which is the Ontario government, can do that work for you if you know how to use it and what everything on there means. I went into it this morning and I lost myself very quickly. But if you know what you're doing, GeoHub could actually do all the work of the significant, the insignificant, and the ephemeral wetlands for the county. So I think that's something we could move to one side, but it is something we'd need assistance on. With respect to the headwater mapping, this goes back to 2021, and Grant, you and I discussed it back then. And we were looking at a project which would take 1, maybe 2 days of computer time, very little county employee time, because the computer would, the GIS would be working on it. The reason for it, and a number of municipalities have recognized this, mapping the headwaters allows them to determine in advance of any planning applications whether or not there's an exposure to the development from headwaters, which then start undermining the development, or they're going to flood in the future. There are a lot of unknown streams in the county. And the county has this information on its GIS. If someone builds a house, the county says, yes, you can build your house there. And there's subsequently a flood event from a stream which is known on the GIS. The insurer pays the claim to them for the flooding, and then they'll turn around and subrogate back against the county. Many municipalities in Ontario have taken the step of protecting themselves by doing headwater mapping. And for the cost of it, it would really be a no-brainer. I don't think we'd have to go into enormous depth on it. It could probably still be one or two days of computer time, but it would be worth it in terms of diverting exposure to liability. And there is a consultant on the county who'd be very pleased to work on it at not much cost.
Angus, it's interesting that I would think it's not just new developments. I was listening to a climate change expert from the University of Waterloo last October, who was identifying flood risk from the increasing intensity of storms, as adding to people's vulnerability. Certainly, I saw earlier this spring with my own insurance that they took the deductible up on this. So people are going to start feeling it. Would this not help people to identify if their property is vulnerable, if their existing home is vulnerable? could we be seen as helping them? I mean, if you've had a home that's been standing for 150 years, I mean, that has nothing to do with anybody doing anything wrong. It's just, we've now got rising risk, and can we help people identify it? That was part of my understanding. Is that correct?
Yes, it would also work to enable adaptation, so that you can change the slope of your garden. You can change the slope of soil going up to the house. You can change what you're putting down, and it would. It's part of climate adaptation, and I think that's something that we would refer to when we finally come up with the climate action plan.
Thank you for that context, Angus. Appreciated.
Yeah, I'd just like to
Yes, sir.
add one comment. I had lunch with the former CAO a short time before she departed this municipality, and I spoke with her about this project, and she said, put it on your agenda for the upcoming budget discussions, get it in there quickly, because the last time you did it, you were after they'd really started putting numbers together. If we're going to do something, do it in May, June, have it ready to go into the budget discussions.
And this is why we're having the conversation today.
Why we're having it today. Yeah.
So one of the storms we did have earlier this year, to Jane's point, which is existing development in existing neighborhoods, we did have a storm where the floodgates pretty much just opened, and municipal infrastructure that had never seen volume rainstorm of the volume that we saw, our topography was overwhelmed, and we did not have the existing infrastructure to deal with a storm of that magnitude, which we will not get very often, but we will certainly get sometimes now. It's a new development, so that this is an interesting addition that you've mentioned, Jane. And Angus, I have a question regarding the website that you mentioned, the what was it?
GeoHub.
GeoHub, which I see it referred to all the time, and I've never gone to look at it. And you said that that's a provincial entity.
It's a provincial, yes.
And Grant, is it something that staff has access to at will, or is it something that we pay for access to, or how does it work? I'm presuming you're familiar.
Absolutely. You use it daily. I've been using it for years. It's an open data hub now. We used to have a subscription, but they've opened up most of their information, except for some of the sensitive stuff where you have to take a course and sign up and let them know you're going to use it for the proper purposes. But otherwise, yeah, it's an open data site. It's open to anyone. Anyone can take the data, they can download it, they can utilize it. We actually, we used to go in and download, let's say, the wetland data on a regular basis just to make sure planning had up to the information. But what we've actually done is integrated their live REST endpoints into our mapping viewer. So if they make a change, if a wetland now becomes a coastal wetland, or if it gets a new designation as a PSW, provincially significant wetland, that shows up in our viewers without us having to do anything. So I love the tool. It's great. And yeah, there's a lot of information there. And like Angus said, yeah, the wetland data is there. That's what we rely on for any of the wetland delineations.
So just along those lines, does that mean, so the data exists, the MNR you said has layers already with wetlands demarcated? I presume it's through, is it attached to GeoHub, or are these sort of layers that they deal with separately in some different format? Forgive my ignorance.
That's okay. No, that's the data that they maintain, and then they just keep it on GeoHub so that you can
Right.
utilize it in your own applications and your own workflows.
So the wetland mapping portion is relatively simple. I'm understanding, like including headland demarcation on our GIS viewer is something that would be comparably simple compared to the headwater mapping. Is that correct?
The wetland mapping is like carried out by the MNR.
Done. Yeah.
You might find local, let's say Quinte Conservation, they might have a different idea of what I don't know. Like,
Right.
I know enough that there can be differences in what they consider a wetland. So if we were making any kind of decisions on that, I wouldn't be comfortable unless we did speak to our local experts on that as well, just to make sure that everyone is in sync with what the
Yeah.
data is telling us, because they're the boots on the ground kind of thing. So I would definitely feel comfortable if they were brought into the whole mix.
So,
Councillor McNaughton, I was wondering if I could ask a question. It's,
Yeah. Of course, anyone in the room can.
Grant,
Pardon me, before you continue, Angus, I'm going to hand the meeting over to you if that's okay, because I need to go drink more water. Pardon me.
Okay, go get your glass of water, Kate.
Grant,
Scott,
I
the floor
wanted
is
to ask-
yours.
Thanks. Grant, I'm just curious, the GeoHub information, the mapping on there for wetlands, it's my understanding in past dealings with Quinte Conservation, they have different categories of wetlands, right? You've got your provincially significant wetlands, which would be kind of your big obvious ones. And then underneath that, they've got local wetlands, but they've also got unevaluated wetlands. The unevaluated wetlands, to my understanding, are, to put it maybe not quite correctly, but they're suspected wetlands, but they haven't been evaluated to confirm that there's actually a wetland there. The extent of the wetland hasn't been properly delineated on mapping. Is that what's on the GeoHub information, or do you know?
Yeah, from what I recall, it's been a while since I looked at the attribute data and the metadata, but it's all there. If you go to GeoHub, they'll have a page, they'll have a link about the metadata, and you can actually go in and they document it all really well in terms of what the attribute data is telling you and the classifications. I'm pretty sure, yeah, you hit that one on the head, that unevaluated means that they've delineated it probably with aerial imagery, a desktop exercise, somebody digitized it in, and they just haven't sent somebody out to the field to figure out what type of wetland it is.
To do proofing, to be proofing in person.
Yeah. And I guess my maybe one comment there is, in seeing some of the mapping in the past for unevaluated wetlands, in some cases, because it's been kind of a desktop mapping exercise, in some cases there is no wetland in those locations. So I guess just a cautionary note that I guess if we're going to map wetlands, we want to make sure that they're actually wetlands that have been evaluated to prove that they're there, and we don't want to use mapping that might not have proven wetlands on them. So that would just be cautionary note there.
Okay, back to you.
Okay. John.
Yeah, just a follow-up question that I'm glad that Scott raised that. We need to be careful what value we give to the delineations of wetlands, because typically, and Scott knows this very well, when a planning application comes forward and there has been an EIS done, one of the first things that the environmental specialist has done is is look to see what is the boundary if there is a wetland. And so they do that ground truthing that Jane mentioned. And this is not a pure science. This is actually an art. And these guys will look at species of plants and say, well, those are plants which are typically wetland plants, or no, 50% of the plants are not wetland plants. And there is often some debate about where is the boundary of the wetland. And that ends up getting resolved based on their expertise as planning applications come to us. So I think it would be great to do better than we do now at showing where we believe wetlands are in the GIS system. But I'm not sure how much weight should ever be given to the boundaries of wetland. You know, if planning was to say to somebody, well, that's a wetland, so you can't build there, that just, you know, I don't think we could say that categorically because it hadn't been ground truth yet. But it would be very good if we could identify in the GIS those boundaries which had been ground truthed and which were, you know, have been looked at and understood and verified. I'm not sure how that would be accomplished. Just my thoughts.
So that's,
Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead, speak to that, Grant.
I was just going to speak to that. I mean, it's all there. It's all in the GIS already. We pull in the data from GeoHub, the MNR. They note whether or not a wetland has been evaluated or not. So all you have to do is like click on the wetland, and it'll give you that information in the attribute data. So it's already there. We do have it.
So that's a filter the public can access as well on our GIS. I've never noticed it.
Oh,
But I've never been looking for, I've never looked for that specifically.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just looking because it's, you know, it's been a while since I actually was building on this thing. But yeah, right now we just have that layer in there showing the provincially significant wetlands. So if that's something that we think that we need on our GIS viewer, then yeah, absolutely, we can add a different classification in there. It's the data is already there, so
with some sort of reference to, you know, subject to ground truthing. Thank you for correcting my language, John.
Well, I think it would be, you know, anyone who was undertaking a development would have to do ground truthing for themselves usually, but I'm not sure if we're talking about something more ambitious here that would include truthing of some larger wetland areas or not. I didn't think it was. I thought it was more access to information or prior to truthing exercise that we were discussing here. Now,
Scott has kind of flagged an opportunity here, as has John, which is, you know, in developments, people come in with development proposals, EIS are done, or maybe I'm just not understanding this process, but as those proposals come in and those EIS are available, there's been studying, there's ground truthing done, is that an opportunity to build upon our overall picture of what is there? Is there, I always like the idea of making use of data that we've built from, in this case, literally the ground up. Are we taking advantage of that to say, oh, well, here's this development proposals come in, here's this EIS that's been done, and it has provided some additional information we didn't have before?
Grant?
There's no update process that I'm aware of right now for that sort of thing, but yeah, I mean, that's something we could look into, I'm sure, if that data is made available in, you know, a GIS format, and then we could create like our own layer that maybe is sits on top of the province's layer, because we don't have the authority or the access to update their information.
Is that useful for any purpose that you can imagine? And Scott, I see you've unmiked, so I'll let you in there too in a second.
I was just going to say, I believe Quinte Conservation would keep track of which ones have been evaluated, and they would have that mapping available. It's just a matter of making that request.
Bringing that
to
together then.
provide it and get it onto the GIS, but that would have to be a discussion Grant could have with the Conservation Authority.
Angus.
John and I both look at the EISs on development projects, and on a number of them, there have been comments that the wetland is either larger than or smaller than it was originally shown. When that is done, is that new information fed back from the EIS into your mapping?
I think Grant said it was not.
No, it's not.
There are no active update. There's no system of updating that information.
No feedback loop from that process back into GIS.
But also presumably if it has been done, it's on land that has seen development, that has seen disruption, and it that's a bit of a done deal at that point, most likely, or in many cases, maybe not all.
If you would like, I could add on
jump
that
in,
a little
Robert.
bit. So yes, I'm Robert McDonald. I'm the development engineer for the county. So the EIS, obviously they do outline where the wetlands and things like that are. Unfortunately, we wouldn't get it in a format that we could give to Grant. Now, I guess there is an opportunity for us to ask the developer or consultant or whoever's working on that project to provide us with something so that Grant could easily input it. But just with the information we get now, it would be a very tough ask to have Grant map out boundaries for anything that we would get for the EIS.
Is there a piece of software, Robert, that you can, like, is there, because you don't want to turn this into an onerous project for the developer either. It's like, would there be a norm or a standard that, a format that we could draw upon that then Grant could be using? I'm just sort of saying, if we're doing all this, let's optimize data that's being gathered. So for one use and anywhere else we can use it kind of picture.
Yeah, so through the EIS, again, engineering drawings and things like that, they would be put in a CAD format. That's something we could give to Grant.
Okay.
People that are doing an EIS, however, they're not experts in CAD or anything, so they'd be field people, environmentalists, so they wouldn't have the same expertise that, say, a civil engineer would in design, where they would do CAD.
And we don't do.
So this would be an additional expense to the developer, and not something that we currently have.
And we don't do in-house CAD drawings ourselves either. So it is usually something that we look to, to consultants to do, because it's quite onerous, just the licensing alone. John, you've been very patient. Your turn.
Just following on Angus's point, I thought Angus was just a little too generous or too neutral, perhaps. My experience is that the vast majority of the time, when a wetland is ground truthed, it turns out to be smaller than what was shown on previous maps. Not surprising, because of course that biologist, whatever, has been hired to allow development to happen on the property. So they will map it that way. But unless that's successfully challenged, that does become the sort of accepted wetland boundary. And if we could capture that, I have to think these folks, most of these companies would generally have it available in the format the Grant would need. And maybe it could be put in and shown as a different color or something in a layer as stuff that's been ground truth.
Well, and I'm wondering if there's an artificial intelligence opportunity here that will present itself.
Then you're getting into the climate implications of artificial intelligence, which are massive. So, I mean, that might be
one crisis at a time. It's coming. Yeah. Let's make it work for good. So,
Grant, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly speak to all that. So, yeah, absolutely. That's GIS is all about ingesting information from different types of systems. This is where extra work would come out, though, where we'd have to sit down, we'd have to design a standard. Most of these third parties aren't using the GIS software we are using. They are using AutoCAD, when CAD drafters draw this information in or bring it in from, let's say, a GPS that they took, when they bring it into CAD, they don't do some of the things that we need in GIS, such as closed polygons and that sort of thing. So that means if let's say you just have a nice circle for a wetland, they may not actually have it like a closed circle. It might be two lines that just connect, and from afar they look great, but in the GIS it sees that they're not connected. So we would have to come up with standards. We would have to give them field names and get into the details about what we do. Yeah. And then, ask them to provide us the data in that particular format. So I'm just trying to highlight here that yes, GIS is wonderful and it's meant to bring in different information. There's all kinds of automation tools out there to speak a little bit to the AI in terms of bringing it in. There's tools such as FME. It's a software that allows you to take data, and if you set up everything properly, it'll just bring it in automatically. We don't have that software in-house right now or the training on it, but other municipalities are using that to bring it from different business systems into GIS. So yeah, but anyway, so there's a lot of thought will have to go in behind the scenes to set this up. It sounds really simple, but it will lead to a lot of work for people manually, especially at the beginning. I just wanted to caution everyone with that. Like, yeah, we can bring this stuff in, and GIS is the place to show it, obviously. Just need to consider that we may need a bit more time for something like this if this kind of thing was brought forward. So just to consider that.
Okay, are there more curious people out there who would like to ask Grant or Robert or Scott about where this touches their work? I'm interested in the useful application, particularly of headwater mapping, and how useful that mapping will be. I think from it, we've heard about an adaptation, that there's an adaptation component, and I find that very helpful. I'm not sure about the development component because developers would have to ground truth anything that they touch anyway, or presumably they will do an ethical and appropriate and comprehensive job. So I'm trying to understand, and maybe Angus, you could help me. Is that what is my understanding correct?
Pretty much. I would move ahead with the headwater mapping and accept that the wetland project is going to involve a lot of cost for developers in total, and additional cost and time for the county without a huge benefit.
Yeah.
I'm quite prepared to say move the wetlands off the table and move ahead with the headwater.
There's also a discussion we're having in 2 items with Scott regarding sustainable development guidelines. And I think wetland considerations could be part of that, what we consider or imagine for that exercise in development of sustainable goals. So we might be able to continue that exact conversation in 2 items. Are there further questions or comments pipe up anytime you want, Grant? Feel free.
Sure, thank you. I just wanted to make it clear, Angus, yes, we did speak a few years ago. One thing that we did talk about, though, was that I had said if all of the parameters were set up and we had the expertise there, we could, yes, run the data, but I just want to make sure it's clear to everybody that until we know exactly what the parameters are that we want to set for the software to run and create these headwater lines, there could be a lot of iterations. So I just want to caution that I just meant like for the actual computer to crunch it once we figured it out. It's, our computers are pretty beefy and it can run on that sort of thing, but I have not you know, we don't know what the parameters are. How many hectares do we want to drain into a cell before it gets lit up as a potential headwater line? So I was just thinking about that. I just want us to be careful when we're pushing this forward. I'm just letting you know, like, it could be a lot more work than we think if we don't have this stuff dialed in.
Parameters.
And, you know, we are pretty busy. We're a small shop here. So I just wanted to caution that. That's all.
Noted.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Further comments or questions? Okay, well, you're off the hook now, Grant. Thanks for joining us today. There'll be more discussion amongst committee members. We'll very potentially see an item come forward from Angus and John at some point to make a recommendation. Thank you for all the information that you've provided today. That was extremely helpful, and thank you to your staff backup team,
Thank you.
Rob and Scott, for happening to be
That was lucky.
in the right place at the right time. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Thanks. So we've got the motion on the floor. If there's no final comment, I'll just ask for a vote. All in favor to receive the discussion regarding headwater and wetland mapping? Okay, and that carries. Thanks very much. And now on to item 7.2, which is similar. We're able to have a free discussion on the environmental impact statement monitoring that we've heard referred to already in this meeting. And I believe Robert is here to talk about that, or is that you, Robert?
Yes, I'll be speaking.
Oh, and David's here as well. Hi, David. So I will hand it over to you to introduce yourselves. We've already kind of got a glimpse of Robert today. Welcome, David. Take it away, David. Would you mind introducing yourself, and then we can, hit the floor running with a Q&A.
Yeah, I'm David McPherson. I'm the manager of engineering. And then I'll let Rob is part of my team. He can introduce himself as well.
So I'm Robert McDonald, and I'm the development engineer for Prince Edward County.
Madam Chair, I was just going to remind the committee, this was, again, a request of the committee to come out, and staff has been advised that this is sort of a consultation, a Q&A, that the committee may have questions about the process, and they're here to provide some answers.
Thanks for clarifying, Ben. That's wonderful. Hang on to that thought, David. Would you like us to put it on the floor before we get going? Thank you. Mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Kathy. So it is on the floor. Take it away, Dave.
Yeah, I'd just also like to introduce Stephanie. She's our construction inspector. So she's our eyes and ears on the field as well. So we have the full gamut from the engineering side.
Welcome, Stephanie. So now, can you, just before we get going with questions and answers, can you sort of outline what happens after you receive an environmental impact statement related to a development, and then that development goes forward and is built? How is that? What is the process for review to ensure that everything was done according to the EIS?
So I think Rob would be the best to run you through the process.
Yeah, so basically the EIS, obviously it's a condition of our provincial policy statements, also our plans, our official plan, our secondary plan for Picton. But basically the consultants, they do their work, and then especially on any of the more complicated subdivisions or developments, we're not experts in this field, so we'll have things peer reviewed. Peer reviewer will look it over, and then they'll make recommendations. Very rarely will you ever see a report come in and a peer reviewer say that everything's good. So then in those recommendations, Depending on how severe it is, it may form a part of the draft plan conditions. So it'll be approved in draft plan, but they have to meet these conditions before they can move on to the next part. Some of those recommendations that come out of the EIS, once the subdivision stage hits, which is where I really get involved, things would be implemented in the subdivision and the design package. So for instance, the erosion and sediment control, so where silt fencing is going to go, they would specify when trees can be removed, what time of year they can't. Same as environmentally protected species, they would have different conditions for that. But we do rely a lot on the consultants, who's a professional in their field, to ensure that the developer is following this properly. As David said, we do have Stephanie as well, and myself will go out on site from time to time. But for a lot of this, especially when it comes to trees and things, there are MECP guidelines that say, depending on what kind of tree species it is, they may have to, if the tree has to be removed to facilitate the development, then they would have to plant so many trees to make up for the ones that got lost. And yeah, and then moving through the project, silt fencing and things should be in place at all times. Generally, once a phase of a subdivision gets going, that's where everything gets laid out. So if there's any issues with, say, I'll use Blanding turtles, they would have to construct their silt fencing beforehand so that they couldn't get into the area. And then there are guidelines for different protected species where they have to contact the ministry if they find any of these species inside the construction zone, and they have to cease construction in that area. And so again, it would be up to the consultants, and also awareness for the contractors to be aware that if any of this takes place, that they have to shut things down and facilitates accordingly to the proper authority.
And then, so I will open it up to the floor, but just one quick question. There's a difference between recommendations that we see coming forward in an EIS and what actually get included in the final requirements. Who makes those decisions? Is it the engineering team, or is it planners, or is it everyone together?
So again, some of these get implemented into draft plan conditions. For instance, one that I looked at recently, they didn't do a study on mammals. So then one of the draft plan conditions say, hey, you have to do a study on mammals and make sure that none of these are in here. And then they do the necessary recommendations. But again, we're not experts in a lot of this, so we do rely heavily on the developers, consultants, and our peer reviewer for any of this. Make sure that the best interest of the municipality and wildlife obviously is put into place.
Okay, Councillor Hirsch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Robert, I guess part of our concern, those who've been involved in some of the complex planning applications and EISs and peer reviews of EISs, and very often there is a term. Increasingly, we're encouraging council to have one of the conditions being that all of the conditions of the EIS, all of the recommendations of the EIS, met. So you mentioned a couple of examples, like if a tree is removed, then X number of trees need to be planted, within a certain area. The issue is who actually checks to make sure that has happened, because the original EIS consultant is often not around anymore. They weren't hired to continue with the monitoring process. It's up to development services to be sure that these things have been done. So that's one of our questions, is how do we know that that's going to be looked after?
David, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in there. So that would form the detailed drawing set for the subdivision, which is the condition of the subdivision agreement. Everything sort of comes in as the package, right? The detailed package. So all the conditions that are outlined in the planning stage then have to be met in those detailed designs. Once those detailed designs are approved with all the conditions met, then that becomes the game plan for the subdivision. So that says the exact location of the trees. That is there. And there's a number of checks and balances on that. It's the developer has their engineer who certifies the site or site plan. And that's part of the security releases once a subdivision gets through the construction stages. And then it's as Rob said, his role as the development engineer and Stephanie, we are also having municipal eyes on that to make sure. So when we get a request for a security release for a subdivision, that's saying that all the work has been done in accordance with the detailed plans. And we go do that double check to make sure, and then that's where the securities can be released. So it's a long-term project, but the big thing is the conditions are set in planning. The engineering, the detailed engineering is when all those conditions have to be met through that detailed engineering. And then the process through build is the checks and balances there. What we're doing now with Rob and Stephanie's role is we are making sure that the municipality has eyes and ears on these developments so we can help catch problems as they come along, so that they don't become a problem at the end, right? When they're asking for a security release, or when from the developer, that's sort of their end game, is they've done it. They said, we're building this project to the approved plans, please confirm. And then that's where the securities get released. We're being proactive and going along the road to make sure we catch things early so that we're not having this conversation at the end. And that's the process that's in place. So there's a number of checks and balances throughout the whole process.
So
Thank you.
So the people who do that work, who might actually go out and view what is actually happening on the ground, whether the trees have been planted in front yards, whether the or required number of replacement trees have been put in, whether the drainage standards have been met, that is in some cases Stephanie and Rob themselves.
Yeah, well, but it's also
as part of a series of checks and balances, including the engineers.
Yeah, but the main role is the developer certifying engineer. So that is the final check and balance. But as I stated, we're being proactive to make sure that we're getting eyes and ears on stuff, so that when we're not having conversations at the end of the process. We're seeing this as it goes. And again, this is something that Stephanie's role as a construction inspection is fairly new to the municipality. We've only had it in place for less than a year. So but it was to give Rob some help. Because Rob has he's doing a lot of the detailed review at the desktop stage. So that is what our sort of role in this, but the authority is the essentially sign off of the development engineer saying that the subdivision was built to the design that was approved.
Okay, Angus.
Thank you. As I mentioned, John and I review the planning applications from an environmental perspective. And what we see in the EIS typically is the consultant who drew up the EIS says, quote, provided the recommendations in, and it's typically item 7, are followed, there will be no adverse impact to the environment. And that includes a whole list of things. You mentioned it, about the preventing soil from going down, bird nesting, mating periods for mammals, etc. Do you have enough people to follow up on those items on all of the applications that are coming in where there is an EIS? Because we're not just looking at subdivision applications. You're looking at development of wineries, development of hotel, motels, even the occasional individual house development. And I'm not throwing this out as a criticism whatsoever, but do you have sufficient people to go out and make sure they're following these all the time? David?
I can speak to that. I would say yes at this point. Where the actually like development goes in waves, right? Like in the winter, there's nothing happening. So we're now just starting to get into the development startup, let's say, right? And now with the addition of Stephanie and Rob, and we also have some of our technical project managers that will help on drainage situations, because we see a lot on the project management side. I would say yes at this point, and that's really we're managing, and it is new with Stephanie's role, but it's working out very well.
So the inclusion of that role is quite encouraging, I would say. We're getting close to a year in, you mentioned. Stephanie, it would be interesting to hear from you what your experience is, if what you're seeing on paper is true to life as you move through development after development.
Yeah, so there's definitely a learning process with what we're seeing on paper and what needs to be involved in the field. I do visit sites on a regular basis, and for the most part, I am seeing good things from what I should be expecting out of the environmental protections.
Okay. So I find this very interesting. It's a process I've never been involved in the least, is that follow-up process. And it's something that is, we don't see developments after the fact. We see developments as a counselor well in advance when it's pretty much lines on a piece of paper. So to hear about the review process regarding the creation of the development is quite new for me. And I find I'm interested and want to learn more. I'm wondering if, so I found this very educational. Thank you. Are there further comments and questions? And I would particularly look to Angus and John. I want to make sure that you guys get all the information that you could possibly need if you're ever going to move forward to make any recommendations or ask for further context. I think we're good. Okay.
I just wanted to clarify something. It's just the timing of this. Stephanie, one thing that has come up, we have a tree policy guideline. We're working toward, I guess, a tree bylaw. Would you be going through, so at the beginning, and there's sort of large specimen trees that I would assume we'd be trying to preserve in some cases, would you be going in sort of early on to make sure that those are, that they've been protected, and any cladding that's required for them, if I'm using the right word? Like, I just want to—
You mean protection during the construction process?
Yeah.
We'll let Dave speak to that.
Yeah, so we're jumping out of departments a little bit. The tree policy is administered by our operationals team, Albert. But Rob, through the design stage and through the essentially review of detailed design, Albert's always a commenter on those details. And he's always looking for the impacts to the tree policy. So
well, I just want to know that somebody's going through to make sure that that it's done.
Yeah, so Albert's that's Albert's responsibility with his arborist. We have an arborist on staff, right? So that falls into their department. But as part of our review, they're part of the internal consulting municipal team.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if that, sure, that would be great.
Yeah, so before any subdivision starts, there is a tree preservation policy, and I'm not going to lie about what happens here if there's severe grading changes or if there's infrastructure underneath the ground. So whether we're laying or lowering or raising the ground level, it's tough for trees to survive in that. So in a lot of developments, it is difficult to keep trees. However, there are several developments where if there is a particular tree, like for instance, there's one in Port Picton right now. We're actually building the parking lot around this tree because it's a large tree that a lot of people in the municipality like.
Mhm.
So a lot of it's the arborists will go around, they'll rate them whether they're in poor, fair, good condition. If they're good condition and they can be kept, we try and keep them. However, in a lot of cases, again, if you have to put water main or a road or anything right where this tree's going, it makes it difficult to keep. But we do try and keep as many trees as we can.
And
Dave, jump in whenever you need.
And it really determines the trees that are on the back end of it as well, right? Is that as part of our tree policy, we have the replacement schedule, right? So that's part and parcel of the landscape plans through the approved detailed designs.
So, and I think part of Jane's question was, how do we get to from A to Z, and who's providing the Z checkup? And that's Albert, is what I'm understanding from Dave. So how closely does the development services team work with the operations team and take advantage of, for example, Cody's expertise?
I would say it's part and parcel of the municipal tool belt. We would use the operational team just as we would use the water wastewater team. We're here to get the most efficient design possible with the protections that meet our policies. On the water wastewater sides, it's the regulations that drive. On the tree policy side with Albert's expertise and Cody's expertise, we utilize them as we would a full team. They're part of the review package.
Did you get a comprehensive answer, Jane, so that you've got a clear kind of picture of how it moves through the process and gets truthed at the end?
Yeah, and I think the problem I'm hearing is a bit of disconnect around, it sounds like if I were to be, it's like we have a tree policy and we go through a review saying what trees are kept, and then it's like if the tree's in the way, it goes. And that's, I'm saying, well, because you're talking about, like, I want to be practical here, but at the same time, I want to be understanding that, because I've seen, I'm living in the middle of a development, and I've seen, and there was a tree policy that said we should have cladding and protections around trees, and there was none.
Okay, so during construction.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I want to know that somebody, and granted, a tree may have to come down, but that somebody's going out and making sure those trees are protected.
So according to the tree policy, there are clauses that instruct developers to protect trees that will be retained with protections that prevent weight bearing on the roots, et cetera. Like there are a number of actions for anyone in the room who doesn't know. And we have had many cases identified due to complaints that developers or people who are doing even extensive we're working through extensive building permits for renovations to heritage properties, for example, have not been protecting trees during the process. It is it's not always as it appears to the public. Sometimes it's not ideal. But for example, I'll use the library's case. There was a tree, a complaint made about the tree that sits in front of, it's a large Norway maple that sits in front of the library. There was a complaint that it wasn't being protected adequately because there'd been a large bin placed on where its roots would be. Absolutely. And unfortunately, there was just no other location for it to go. So I think there's a lot of shades of gray in there. Dave, please jump in.
Yeah, I would say the authority for the tree policy lies with the operational team. So some of these details it'd probably be a better conversation with Albert on specifics.
Okay.
Albert and Cody themselves, right? I know from the development side, They're part of our team, just like the water wastewater. They're commenting on the landscape plans. They're part of that. So if there was an issue that was brought, say an issue that was brought to Albert's team's concern, he would reach out to our development team, and then we would work as a municipality to get the requirements in place.
Yeah, I hear that, but there's still, but you're waiting for a complaint.
Well, I can't
It's like
speak.
action.
Yeah, again, we're not the authority on the tree policy, so I can't speak to Albert's ability to go out and inspect. I just don't know his workload, right? So
Okay.
that conversation would be maybe a conversation with Albert. We're from the development side, we're looking to, if we do have a concern brought forward, and we'll act on it accordingly. But
Yep.
we're not the authority on the tree policy. We're part of the municipal team. If we see stuff, we'll go to our in-house experts, and it's amazing to have an arborist in-house.
Yeah.
Cody is an amazing resource. Albert is an amazing resource, and they are definitely out there looking to protect the tree canopy. And I deal with Albert group almost daily or weekly. So it is a great, just from my seat, it's a great resource to have in-house, and a lot of municipalities don't have the Codys and the Alberts in-house. So just a plug on that end. They are doing a phenomenal job.
I think this committee would agree. Are you seeing more understanding, education, and compliance in the development community for protection as needed for natural assets?
I think over the years, absolutely, it's getting better. There's always room for improvement. And I think even our tree policy probably in the future could be tweaked a little bit more too. But I can't speak to those details, right? I'm not the arborist, but I definitely think that there's a mindset that I look at the tree canopy as you can't replace it quickly.
No.
Right. So that's a key to it. So the benefits of shade and all that is substantial. So it is
energy
part
costs and cooling costs. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I'm getting a nudge from our clerk that we need to move ahead. Bless him. He's keeping us on track. So I'm going to cut this off now. Apologies for interrupting Dave. But when Ben speaks, I listen. Thank you for all the context. Thank you for the education, and thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation. Grateful that you were able to come and speak to your areas of expertise, and welcome to the EAC, Stephanie. Nice to see you here. So if it's okay, we'll call the vote on that. It's already moved and seconded and on the floor. So all in favor. And that carries. Thanks so much to our staff. Thank you, Dave and Robert and Stephanie, for joining us today and providing all of this information. And welcome back. You're welcome back anytime.
Well, thank you for having us, and everyone enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Take care. Thanks.
Have a good night.
You too. This is their busy season, so it's extra appreciated. Next, we move on to the new 7.3, which is Scott Pordham is joining us to just have a brief conversation, brief because Ben will want to keep us on track. No, I'm joking, Ben. I'm just giving you a hard time. Scott, welcome. This is regarding the much talked about sustainability guidelines. You wanted to consult with the committee, and we're at your disposal, and we're grateful that you reached out.
Well, thanks very much for having me.
At least. I shouldn't speak for the committee.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I guess just for background, there was a motion passed looking for staff to work on sustainability guidelines. It was actually something that was supposed to be prepared going back, I think, before Christmas, but unfortunately, with some of the constraints on staff time, we weren't able to get at it. But I know the manager, Mike, who actually just recently left the county, had asked me to follow up with the committee and just kind of get a gauge on what they were hoping to include as part of any guidelines. And certainly, I think we can talk about it now, but if we want to discuss it in another forum, whether it's a meeting for a subcommittee or something like that, or another smaller group, we can certainly do that. But I think that was just what we were looking for, was just to kind of get an idea of what the committee was hoping to have in these sustainability guidelines. I know there was an example sent to us. I think the committee had been aware that East Gwillimbury, a municipality north of Toronto, had guidelines, and maybe you're looking for something similar to what they've got. Have had a chance to look at it, so they've kind of got some design standards. There's a checklist, and so that's something that maybe you're hoping for. I guess some of the things that are in the design standards might be needing some discussion about exactly what elements you'd like to see in, for instance, site plans. But that's certainly a discussion we can have. And then I guess the other thing was just to make the committee aware. There is a construction industry group called ResCan, which is the Residential Construction Council of Ontario. And I don't know if the committee is aware of that. They did file a legal application with the Ontario Superior Court of Justice, requesting a mandatory order that would block the City of Toronto from enforcing construction standards that they've got. So that's just something to be aware of. Those would be construction standards that are specifically beyond those set out under the Ontario Building Code. So that's just something, I guess, to be aware of in terms of any discussion on the matter. But yeah, no, I'd love to find out exactly what the committee was hoping to have as part of this this work.
Okay, we're gonna go to John, but first I would say the action that group is taking would be, I think, immaterial to any exercise that the county would undertake. People are always welcome to dispute our local municipal policies, but we are allowed to have within the laws that we work within, we're allowed to have higher standards than the minimums set. And there's a tribunal if anyone ever doesn't want to, comply with them. So I'm going to throw it over to John.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks, Scott. I'm glad we're finally getting at this project. I think you did mention, would it be useful to sort of get together with some people in a small group, and my recommendation, pretty sure Angus would agree, is that and Kate, if we can get you in a room with Dan Leeming for half a day or so, we'd be in business. Dan is arguably the provincial, if not national, expert on how to work with green design guidelines. I'm sure he's familiar with this legal situation you're mentioning in Toronto. And as you will have noticed from the East Gwillimbury approach, it's not hard and fast rules. It doesn't say thou must do this, but it does say, well, if you do this, you're going to get faster, perhaps, and more favorable consideration of your planning application. So it's sort of a carrot and stick kind of approach. But Dan has been saying to us for a long time that he'd love to meet with you guys. And if we could set that up, we can really get this going.
Well, actually, Scott and Dan met recently at a Green Task Force meeting. So
well, there you go.
We had, how lucky. It was actually he well, I would sort of leave it at that. There and we had a couple of planners in the room, and the entire Green Task Force. So, and I thought it was a very productive meeting in general. And Molly was there too. So Molly and Angus were also there. I am in, but if John, if you would like to pursue smaller groups, we can arrange that with the help of our clerk. If our clerk is willing to support that, we can totally go ahead and do that. Or if the Climate Action Plan working group wants to connect, we could probably look to make that happen too. Oh, we've got a new member of the committee in the room. Hello. So I don't know if you've got voting rights yet, but
Maybe not yet.
What's that? It can do your voting for you.
Yeah, that'll be helpful. I'll let you
Perfect.
know. Thank
Okay.
you.
So can I ask Scott, are you still considering rolling all language into the secondary plans separately as they come forward within a natural review process? Or are you considering a schedule that would be attached to the OP and secondary plans?
Well, currently we've got language in the official plan that would address some green design and then even more in some of the secondary plans. So for instance, there's a couple pages of design standards for the Wellington secondary plan. When we get going on the Wellington secondary plan, because that's going to be up for review, we can certainly take a look at those green design standards and see if they need to be tweaked. If there's more than a tweak that needs to happen, it might be something that justifies maybe a separate document, not just something in the secondary plan policies, but we can certainly take a look at that. Yeah, when we do the secondary plan review. That Wellington one, we hope to get going this fall after a few delays on trying to get it going, but we'll hopefully get it started this fall.
I understood that it would be coming forward for approval by very late summer or early fall. So that's a bit of news. John,
Just as a quick follow-up, I think it certainly would be Dan's view and probably the view of the Climate Action Plan Working Group that it actually be a separate document and that it happen as soon as possible, because we have so much development coming online now, and we run the risk of projects, final plans of subdivision getting done in the absence of these guidelines. And we believe that developers, certainly the developer for Cold Creek, has made some good steps in what they're proposing. Base 31 is going to be huge. There's several others in Picton going to be huge. And if we wait too long, it'll be kind of too late for all that development. So I think separate document would be the preference of the working group.
In my reckoning too, we've got some good language already in the official plan and all the secondary plans. We do, but it's very soft language. And the lack of prescriptiveness and the lack of a discrete document, I find is very difficult. And a feline committee member joins the conversation. So I would agree with that, John. I
mean, I just find it confusing that it would be attached to a secondary plan. That it doesn't seem like it would be unique to an area, that it would be more of a broad-based.
Scott?
Yeah, that's, there's different ways of including these types of green design standards. Some municipalities don't have anything in this respect. To see them in the county secondary plans was good to see. That's interesting that they've got that. And then, yeah, but certainly a more broad-based design standard that could be, a design guideline could be developed. Now, if it's done outside of a secondary plan, that might require council to get behind that as a separate project. But that's whatever council gives in terms of direction, and we can follow through on with that.
think
If
that
it is a
was-
separate one,
Yeah.
I guess there might have to be some discussion too, whether or not that's something that requires a consultant to develop. But
That was what the motion from last year prescribed, that there would be sustainable guideline provision. And we had heard from staff that it would be something that could be accomplished within the year, which is why we went forward the way it was. And our CAO at the time was suggested that it would be most impactful if it was done simply and cleanly in consultation with this group. And I think the understanding on council was that it would be a discrete production that could then be attached.
Mm-hmm. Can we not find a way to capitalize that we have the provincial expert, if not national, living here
Well,
and on our committee?
I think we have. I think we do have some good opportunities too with our. This is something that's been sent. Scott has the process that Grey County is going through, and that's one of our comparators. Now they're larger than we are, but very similar. They're very similar in sort of they're a rural, sprawling rural area, a massive rural area. Now it's an upper tier and a lower tier, not a single tier, but or an upper tier and many lower tiers. And we're a single tier, but they are going through this very large process of consulting for a sustainable design guideline that will be shared by 3 counties. So, and theirs will be both, I believe, a discrete policy, or it's anticipated to be both a discrete separate policy, but also included in all of their major planning documents and requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they're not sure what that's going to look like quite yet. That's just an assumption. So there are municipalities, if we're going to be, it's hard to, it would be nice to like crank the speed, but I think we have some timing challenges that will prevent this from going forward with haste. And I've got the original motion.
Mm-hmm.
The original motion from the committee recommends, and this is via Ben, thank you, Ben. The committee recommends council direct staff to explore in consultation with the Climate Action Plan Working Group, the adoption of sustainability guidelines for use in Prince Edward County and to report back to council by Q4 2024. And I just want to clarify, I believe that was committee of the whole, not this committee. And
That's correct.
so, but Scott, if you are looking for further clarity, if you're looking for further clarity, whether it's discrete or like, I think that understanding was it would be a standalone policy that could be attached as a schedule to all of our secondary plans. But I still think what you're doing, which is strengthening in the language, and making it, I think the easier that we can place the information in someone's hands, the better. And some of the information that you're going to see from newer sustainability guidelines, if you're looking for examples, will be the newer ones will have some up-to-date information about the absolute newest technologies as well, because I think some of them are the ones that sort of got the ball rolling that are very impressive might not include some of those technologies, but also the to go back to what John said, the potential for encouraging through preferred prioritization, anything that would be an inducement, I think would be really great.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never heard that comment about, kind of preferred time frame. So yeah, that would be something I'd have to find out about, because the time frames for site plans, for instance, are set out under the Planning Act. So I'm not sure how you provide preferred timing on approvals. Certainly there's financial incentives that I think I've seen offered by some municipalities, whether it's straight out grant or rebates on development charges or something of that nature. But yes, we can certainly look into it. But yeah, no, I just wanted to kind of get a feel for what the committee was hoping for. So this certainly helps, and I can follow it up more.
Yeah, I think one of the tricks is something we can do. I believe East Gwillimbury did, is you make a requirement of a complete application, because that's what starts the time clock, right?
Yeah.
You make one of the requirements of a complete application that there be an explanation of what are the green measures the project.
Oh, okay.
If anything, you got a complete application, and they haven't hit the starting line yet. So that's one trick I think that can be used. But Dan Leamy knows this stuff inside out. He'd be prepared to meet with you for free, at least to get that conversation started. And
also, it can save. I mean, I can picture Dan being able to save staff an enormous amount of research and investigation time, because he's got the examples and the experience around, okay, don't do what such and such a community did because that went astray for X. Like, don't reinvent the wheel. And I think he can really expedite this and save you time.
Before we continue, if anyone is interested in a meeting with staff that we can look forward, or that we can work on setting up in the future, if Scott's willing and available, please reach out and we can do that. I think it would be great to try to connect a couple of members of the Climate Action Plan Work Group, if we could potentially consider anyone who has some interest and would like to provide some very direct or detailed input into green design guidelines, whatever you want to call them. Why don't we try, we'll check with everyone's schedule and try to set up a couple of small groups and try to respect Scott's time alongside that, Scott, if you're willing, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
And we could reach out to members of our working groups as well to try to get a couple of little groups. We have to be careful not to have quorum in the room, and I think that's easy to achieve. And I'm happy to work with Ben on ensuring that that is that we're not breaking our ethical rules as we go along. So if anyone does have any particular design guideline item that they want to mention right now, that they want to throw out there in a last round of comments, throw it out there. Now's your chance. And otherwise we can save further conversation for small and hopefully efficient groups. Okay. I'm not seeing any hands right now, but I certainly think a number of people in this room have some ideas. Thank you for joining us today, Scott. I would, one last thing before we go. Another thing, it would be great to hear from members of this committee whether they would like to see a discrete policy, or if they're comfortable with this simply being added into, not simply, it's not simple at all, it's complicated, but being added into. You can reach out and let our planners know through me or through Ben if you would like it to just have strengthened language or clarified language in our major planning policies, or if you think it should be a standalone. Different people might have different opinions that they don't necessarily have fleshed out quite yet. So, but moving right along, thank you so much, Scott, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
More to come. We will, I'm sure, be in touch. Any last word from anyone? All in favor then? Great, that carries. Thanks for the discussion, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
Take care. So next item on the agenda, and you're welcome to stick around if you want. Next item on the agenda is Bill 5, I believe. And we've got, we're going to have a bit of a complicated conversation, and we don't have a ton of time left to the meeting. Were people interested in providing some comment to the province, providing some advice to council? Are there particular concerns you would want to highlight? I think at first glance, and I have not looked at each legislation, the key concerns I would see would be a lack of local planning control, or an undermining of local planning control, an undermining of the Species at Risk Act, which does not look at, which changes the nature of the requirements to not be part of the solution, but just be maintaining the existing populations of a particular species. And certainly from a First Nations perspective, some lack of respect for protection of important cultural archaeology. Potentially a number of locations would lose access to sensitive archaeology, which could be part of, an important part of First Nations history. And, I find that to be maybe a little bit sideways from our committee's purview, but certainly is maybe part of the values of our committee. But I would want to hear from everybody else.
I think there's also an issue around working against the efforts around to secure and protect biodiversity.
Absolutely. 100%. That's, we're not just in a a climate crisis, we're also in a loss of biodiversity crisis. John.
Yeah, and there's another, they've jammed a whole bunch of stuff into this kind of omnibus bill. So Schedule 9 actually talks about establishing an act called the Special Economic Zone Act, something like that.
Oh, yes, right.
And what that would allow the province to do is to say that this geographic area is needed for, and the example they've used, and which we're familiar with in the media, is mining for rare earth elements or whatever, mostly in the north, to kind of counter what the United States is doing. And the province, their idea is that they could just say, well, this geographic area is designated for this kind of economic development, and never mind what municipal bylaws might say, the province is just going to approve it. Now, but it doesn't say in this proposed act that's only for mining. It could be anything, anywhere. So as Penny Morris mentioned, they could somehow decide that the Picton Terminals property was perfectly suitable for quarrying rock, and let that go ahead without any permissions from the county, which, as many of you know, we've been fighting for a very long time. So that's pretty scary. My recommendation to the province would be that we need to circumscribe what that is meant to cover, and if it really is mining thereafter, then just say that in the legislation. So, but I'm not sure how we formulate something that can possibly get through council next week and on to the province.
So one method that we've done in the past when we've had very short timelines for public consultation contributions is we've made a compilation after the fact and then sent it out to each committee member for viewing, who could then supply comments back. That is something that we could do, but it would still have to be provided to council in a timely manner. And I mean, this is really quite narrow.
So is this like providing a proposed letter to council that they would approve?
It could
then be sent to the province.
It could be. It could be a proposed letter, which would have, but we would have to prescribe the content initially. So,
Madam Chair, may I?
Sure.
May I jump in? The committee may remember going through these efforts last year with the American eel and the pug-nosed shiner, and
very well.
Those were calls on a ministry website for submission. So eventually, the committee approved a submission that was circulated to council for endorsement, and then one of us in the office just submitted it online for there. Perhaps I might suggest that that's the ticking clock for the moment, that there's a May 17th deadline on submissions related to changes to the Endangered Species Act and the and a proposal for the Species Conservation Act. So the Ministry of Environment is asking for comment on that immediately. And that's something that this committee could decide language in this meeting that could go on council agenda for next week. Perhaps the broader implications of the bill might be something that you carry on work on. But to hit that May 17th deadline, we could cover some
very
ground.
tight. And I don't, know off the top of my head that we've got, we've been given no time to work with here. And I don't know that we can do this off the top of our head in this meeting. In the past, where we've had letters prepared, we have basically had individual, I'm thinking of some of the input to letters on developments. We've taken input from councillors, committee members, somebody acts as scribe and gets a draft together. So, and I would say if we need to get a draft together, and then you need to get everybody, or we give this assignment to people on the committee to write, get the draft and a draft before council. So the deadline for the province is 17th, and you said the council meeting is what, the 13th?
Yes.
Okay, so, and so that's a
So-
week from today.
Well, now the deadline for only the environmental, I can't remember the name of it.
The
Ben, what's
endangered,
the name?
it's the Endangered Species Act. They changed
Which
it.
is on the environmental, the website though, the consultation website, Ontario's consultation website.
Yeah, the environmental registry.
Thank you. It's just the environmental registry. I thought I was missing something. So that only relates to the species at risk. So we can actually recommend that council supply comment for that very simply, which is to leave the act as it is. Because we have a crisis in biodiversity that is being amplified by the crisis in global climate change. So
And
we
what's,
could.
and what's the deadline for the special economic zones? Is that later?
There
I
is.
can't remember.
It's not on a registry that I was able to find.
No, I haven't found.
I believe that would simply be providing advice to council that they draft and send communication, or perhaps you and I as councillors should be putting a motion on the agenda for the 13th.
Something I saw today is that at least one municipality has taken the approach, given the tight timelines, that their request and their comment on the ERO is that they request consultation with the ministry staff before this gets finalized, and that provides some time to get
That's a good
ready for such consultation, rather than trying to do our laundry list of items.
Yeah.
By the 13th.
Although we can have a preamble according to what you said, Kate. You know, given these risks, blah, 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 we request, and then we go to John's consultation.
Ben does have some wording. And Ben, would you like to read that? This is a suggestion that we can jump off of. We can use this as our jumping off point.
Yes.
This comes off the Green Party of Ontario. It's their suggested letter regarding essentially the environment, and you can change it around or send it as is to Premier Ford.
Would you like to send that out to committee members, Angus?
I just sent it.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. Sorry, we might have missed your there might have been a preamble we couldn't hear. Ben, would you read the
Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen.
Sure.
Doing this. Let me increase the font a bit here. Something
okay.
Along those lines. The Environmental Advisory Committee of the Council of the Corporation of the County of Prince Edward discussed the proposed changes to the Endangered Species Act 2007 contained within Bill 5, full title, at a meeting on May 6th. The committee opposes the proposal, which may weaken important protections for endangered species, and requests consultation with ministry staff. I just added that in from Councillor Hirsch's comment.
Yeah, it's very good.
This
That's good.
This is similar to the sort of style we did with the American eel last year. And if the ministry is counting numbers, then it puts you decidedly on one side of the ledger.
So this would be for input in the consultation online itself.
Yes, and I would put a motion. I would include this. Let me stop sharing here. I would suggest a motion to council that the committee recommends council endorse the submission by the EAC as included, and we just give them the language so council can approve what's being submitted, and in this case has a decent chance to approve it before it's submitted. And
I would, let me see, how did I end up in this view? Let me just return to the Brady Bunch view. I would my suggestion would be that we don't submit it as a committee. We would we would recommend to council that they direct staff to supply the response to the recommendation, or the response to the public consultation. That would be, I think, more effective. That's just my one thought. Other people might prefer it come from the committee and that we look for council endorsement. And I would leave the floor open to determine that. Angus, you had your hand up a moment ago, I think.
Yeah, on Ben's suggested wording, I would change may to will.
Sure.
Because it will impact it.
How do people feel about that wording?
Yes.
Through the chair, Angus, we clerks sometimes drift towards neutrality, so good to stake in the ground.
Point taken.
Instincts are strong.
Yeah.
Now, as for the rest, there are all the other items, which is, as John has outlined, undermining local planning control and activities related to the special economic zones, which just sort of seems a little creepy and maybe a little double speakish. And what I would suggest is important that that we support any of our First Nation neighbors who might have some concerns about what that piece entails, which allows an awful lot of activity potentially without any checks and balances for the environment, for local archaeology. There are a number of problems. So should we be looking to find an avenue to supply comment for that, which would likely be a letter that council would direct a letter to come from the mayor, or that we would recommend that, or potentially John and I can put a motion on that could then be communicated to the provincial government and any ministries that seem to have a hand in this. Or what would people like? How would people like to move forward? Or is comment on this species at risk plenty? And Molly, jump in if you want to.
Madam Chair, I would just offer a clerk's comment that much of the proposed changes will certainly be on the purview of the EAC, and I would not want to see your efforts muddied by questions at council that why are you talking about archaeology or something that may not relate.
Well, I mean, that relates to the same item John brought up, which is local planning control. The special economic zones undermine local planning control, local environmental protection, and local First Nations rights to their own archaeology. So, we wouldn't even have to necessarily. We could look to make an integrated motion. The committee might prefer that John and I undertake that, if John's willing, or
we could do that. Yep.
Yeah, or we could have a motion that recommends to council that they do. And I think in this case they might. I don't think that they're very favorable to the undermining of local planning control, which has never gone over well with any of us. But either way, we can. I think John and I could do the county's bid or do the committee's bidding, or we could, as a committee, make that recommendation.
Given the environmental implications, of the special economic zones. And given there is a somewhat longer timeline for that component, happy to see you and John doing something on that. And I don't think, given the environmental risks accompanying these special economic zones, or John's point that it should be clarified it's for rare earth minerals, that I think is within the purview of this committee. Take the time to do it right. This
yes, this
given the risks.
we've not had lots of time to think about it. How do other people feel? Paulina, Mary, I would include you, Molly, your staff, but if you have any thoughts to add, please do. Kathy. So anyone who would like to comment on that as a proposal? No, okay. Do people want John and I to go away and knock something up and send it out and let you guys have a look? Is that okay, John? Are you good with that?
Sure, yeah.
As counselors, we've got some wiggle room. Okay, so we'll take that as assigned. We'll need a motion to provide to council that whether do we want to recommend to council that they provide that they direct the municipality to provide the input in the there we go. Thank you, Ben.
We can edit as we need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the only aspect here might be, because we're referencing endangered species alone, and are we going to put a reference in here to the special economic zone, for example?
Well, that's not actually on this on the environmental registry.
Okay.
So we're all we sort of we can, if we do compile a letter for council to send to our representatives and the ministry, we can include both.
From this.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this is just for the consultation, which I still think would be stronger coming directly from council.
So
however, this all looks very good and the wording looks very good.
I just noticed.
And thank you for including, yeah,
I just noticed on the ministry website, it includes this language, the Species Conservation Act. So
yeah,
we'll just use their words back.
Okay.
Okay. Mary, if you do need to, if you need to leave, yes, by all means.
We've got quorum. We're fine.
Yeah,
right?
but it's been a long meeting, so we absolutely understand. Okay, so what would people like? Are people happy with the proposal contained within?
Sorry.
How do people want, are people comfortable? You know what, let's do this. Let's pass a motion that will allow us to submit this to council. Is it possible, Ben, before we have final wording, to have people look at it on paper and then send back feedback? Or do you need to pass it as is?
It's better to, it's better not to fiddle with it. I mean, we make allowances for administrative corrections,
right?
Fix a bit of wording, but anything substantial, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
And in a perfect world, the council agenda will be published on Thursday. So
yes,
this is good time to get it on to the next meeting agenda.
Yeah. So how do people feel about it about us recommending to council that they make the submission, or do people want to hold it within the purview of the Environmental Advisory Committee and get council endorsement for it. So, and we'll have a little go around if that's okay, like, please put your hand up and let me know one way or the other. Jane, you're council or committee?
Council.
Council. John, are you?
I think council, yeah.
You too, okay. Does anyone disagree with that? Paulina, if you have any,
sounds good.
would it, but there's nothing preventing us from doing both. I do think that it is a potential, it confounds it a little bit. Has a particular preference that, you know, that would include keeping it or having multiple submissions, then share. Thank you, Ben.
I'm going to give you another option here. Actually, let me add in the weakening language. Bear with me. The council. I mean,
council recommends council submit the following. So I would change the wording, council submit the following comment to,
okay.
And then have it a discrete quote. And I would also remove that second reference to the council opposes and change it to we are opposed.
Okay. Bear with me. I can take
that's fine.
Yeah, take the language from the first draft.
Yeah.
Is Carter still here?
I don't think he is.
No, okay. We're just gonna check in with him because we'd not heard from him, so.
You're going to have to change the meeting date.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be the 13th.
13th. Good catch. Is it fair to say, though, Madam Chair, that the changes were, I guess you will have a brief discussion about the changes proposed. The committee has certainly had a discussion. If this is on a consent agenda, council may not have had the discussion. But we could change that to considered. And by voting on it, they are considering it. You are considering it.
Correct. Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, and we will need to be prepared to explain this at council if it's passed.
And we can send out the information in advance as well.
So I'm just going to point out, if I've looked distracted in the last few minutes, it's because I was checking the ERO. There is a separate listing for the Special Economic Zones Act.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, and guess what? The deadline is the same, May 17th.
Oh,
okay.
Of course.
So two motions or two submissions under the same motion that have similar wording, correct?
Yeah.
Is that what do people feel good about that? Okay.
Let me find that. Then, Madam Chair, I'll change this language to the ERO.
Great.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you.
And right, I see that the Special Economic Zones Act.
Madam Chair, I have to leave at 6:30 at the latest.
Goodness, this is a long meeting for us. I'm
Me as
very
well.
sorry. If we, you know what, if we can continue to wordsmith it. Ben, do
Yeah.
you have a few minutes after the meeting? You and I can
Yeah.
continue to work on it. We can send it out just to make sure that it
Yes.
matches everyone's expectation. And we can just get it moving because we don't have any time left. I would love to throw this over to the next item. Let me just get back to my agenda.
You know, Madam Chair, if we're going to wordsmith it, we do need to actually have a vote on this.
Absolutely.
I think we're in agreement, and we'll just make sure that the wording for the economic zones one is accurate. But if you would like to, we don't have a mover or seconder for this. We could do that and then vote.
So Jane is moving, and hang on, I just have to switch views. And oh, lots of hands up to move and second. And Kathy is seconding. Okay. All in favor? Thank you. Everyone who's in the room seems to be in favor. I didn't get Polina, I didn't get your buddy's vote. There I did. Good job. Thank you. So thank you everyone for allowing that on the agenda. Thank you for the discussion. And Penny, and thanks Penny Morris for joining us today. Because I thought her advocacy was excellent, the way she reached out to our local representatives. So the next item is just a verbal update quickly regarding Earth Day events, which I kind of thought about as April 12th events in my mind and kind of stole a little bit of thunder from Molly. Because our staff have done some amazing Earth Day things, and I'm going to throw it over to Molly. Molly, if you could just briefly review what any of the wonderful goings on that you guys have been have had going on.
Well, I honestly wasn't a part of a ton of all the Earth Day activities. Like, I am aware of most of them and what was going on, but I wasn't a huge part of those. But do you want me to touch on that or touch on like the
Or just
consultation?
the final consultation would be good, because we did not hear when we last had an update. We heard about the initial consultations and any feedback that you received, and this was the last public consultation. And you can talk about what we're still trying to nail down going forward.
Yes, for sure. I won't go into kind of a ton about the consultations that we did because we're running short on time, but if anyone wants to see feedback that we were given, I've compiled all of it. I have like a large summary of it, as well as like a shorter, more condensed version. So if you're interested, I can send it to you and you can take a look at any of the feedback we've received. And that was from the like 4 previous consultations that we did with the community. And then upcoming, we'll also plan to do one with PECI still. We're trying to narrow down a date for that for sure, but we'll plan to do one with PECI. And then we'll also plan to have 2 more consultations with stakeholders in the community. So we'll do one that's with volunteer groups, like Quinny Field Naturalists, or just different groups that are volunteer groups. And then we'll have another consultation with more like organizations. So we'll have Quinny Conservation come, hopefully we'll invite people. That'll be more like organization business based. Again, we don't have dates for those. I'm hoping to have them picked this week, like have those dates decided and book rooms for those. So people are obviously welcome to attend those who contribute, but I'll send more information as they have them, or as I have it. But just so you know, there's kind of three things consultation wise that we're still planning. And then we also, I guess 4, we'll plan to do, we'll discuss this more, but kind of like a workshop with the EAC and maybe with the Agriculture Committee too, to go over the action plan more thoroughly once we have all the feedback from these consultations, once I've gone through it all, and have kind of a solid body to the plan. It won't be all fancy or anything, but if we have the content to it, the EAC can go through it and people can see what they like and don't like and give me and the working group all suggestions. And then we'll just keep working on it and hopefully have it like mostly finished by July. So that's kind of what the next 2 months look like in that regard. So yeah.
Questions? Perfect. Thank you, Molly. Questions or comments for Molly?
Yeah.
Nope, we're all good.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sitting through that entire meeting. But I mean, I hope you would have been here anyway.
Yeah, it's great to listen to it, definitely.
Yes, and thank you. I saw your nonverbal inputs in our earlier items and very much appreciate your input. So thank you very much. Can I get a mover and a seconder to put this on the floor? Kathy and Jane, all in favor? And that carries. Thanks again, Molly. Now, working group updates. Just because we're so late, I am wondering with working group updates and work plan discussion, will people, if we defer these to the next agenda and just have them at the next agenda, if people want to share some information, share updates or share additions, subtractions, or reprioritizations that they would like to propose from the work plan, you can email it to the group. Okay, thanks so much for everyone. Do you need a motion to do that then?
Just a motion that'll defer both of them.
Okay. I mean, they'll be on the next agenda anyway. Thanks. Jane's gonna move that and
need a seconder?
And we've got Jillian is going to second that. So thank you, Jillian. All in favor? Thank you. Maybe we'll get you all out of here before dinner. And next meeting date is scheduled for June 3rd. Is that acceptable for everybody? Mm-hmm. Okay. And Paulina, is your little buddy available on the 3rd?
Are you available for the next meeting?
No. Okay. No, okay. We'll go on without you. It's fine. So can I get a motion to adjourn from Paulina and Kathy? Thank you. And we will be adjourning at 6:29 p.m. Sorry for the late finish, everybody. All in favor? Great. Thanks everyone for joining in today. And thank you everyone for your participation. And thanks to Molly for joining us for the whole meeting. Awesome. Cheers,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Have a great dinner.
Guys,
Bye.
Bye.
Ben, do you want me to stick around?
Yeah, this will just take a couple minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Can you email that?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Is Kathy? Oh, Kathy left.
Were you asking me?
Yeah, no, I was asking you.
Yeah, okay.